Volantis, fire outskirts. Wescal Staples ran as fast as his legs allowed him down the familiar path to his home. He kicked up dirt behind each hurried long step he took, almost sprinting as if an enraged Clixall hen had spotted a dumb rookie trying to steal the eggs from her nest. The long rifle on his back bounced constantly. The feathers on his belt soared with the wind hitting them as he ran. His uniform was dirty, utterly uncaring that he was smearing it with mud, grass stains, and dust, and his hunter hat was held against his head with one hand, firmly pressing it to avoid losing another one. "Wescal, what happened? What got you running like that? Did a blasted blue blood cut off someone's head or something?" Wescal heard the worried but already angry voice of Mr. Warlow, one of their neighbors and a good man at heart with a burning hatred for nobles at large. It was so typical for the old, cane-wielding man to assume that a noble was responsible for any altercation or scandal. To be fair, he was right most of the time in that regard. The Clixall hunter slowed his pace as he did a sharp turn, using his ankle as a pivot in a manner that he had learned over the years. "War!" the 19-year-old yelled, his gaze turning to the aged veteran. "Treason! Duke Draymore has launched a coup! Betrayed the prince!" he shouted in between ragged breaths, feet never stopping. After his reply, he turned his attention back to the road, only faintly hearing a cane falling to the ground, followed by a string of very unflattering words flowing out of the old man's mouth. Wescal kept running, desperate to get home as soon as possible. It took him another 3 minutes until he saw his home on the distance, a humble but beautiful residence won by his parents' hard work. It had been an almost cruel irony of the universe that their home, surrounded by lush life and so close to the forest, had brought so much pain to his big brother Wyatt. Thinking about his big brother was always bittersweet. On one hand, he was a fantastic brother. He always looked out for him and Wham. He loved his family and always did his best. But on the other, he'd seen the pain and the trauma his brother had gone through. The sleepless nights when he screamed in terror, his isolation, his refusal to socialize or interact with anyone, the mouth-breathing idiots calling him a liar, and his fear of anything plant-related. But Wyatt proved stronger, and eventually he regained his senses and strength, even if he looked diminished and fractured in his eyes, and now he was potentially in danger in a conflict that could drag him to war. "Mom! Dad! Wham!" Wescal shouted as he approached his home, slowing down as the air in his lungs burned from his long run. He was used to running long distances thanks to his job, but the run from the train station to his home was more than arduous. He was about to shout again when the front door opened, revealing his father, Wirt Staples. His father was quite lanky. His black hair already had several gray hairs. His face had several wrinkles but maintained an air of youth around himself, and his scarred, burned arms were exposed as his shirt was pulled up, clearly working on something. "Wescal, what's the matter, son?" Wirt asked, his voice gruff but amicable, his tone preoccupied. "Dirt, Dad, you inside!" Wescal cried out, his breathing ragged and spent. His muscles were burning now that he had crawled to a near halt, and his father, bless his heart, aided him inside the house. Wirt Staples guided his second son to the living room where he sat him down on the couch. Wescal wanted to speak, but he put a hand on his left shoulder. "Catch your breath first, Wescal," he commanded, and his son nodded. Then he turned to the side. "Winona! Wham! Get here! Wescal has something important to tell us!" He shouted, and a few moments later his youngest son, Juan Staples, appeared after running from their little workshop, his hands still stained with grease as he used a cloth to wipe them. Unlike Wyatt and Wescal, Wham's hair was brown, and his eyes were a beautiful yellow syrup-colored hue, just like his mother's and Wescal's. "You look like shit, Wes. What happened? The guild kicked you out or something?" Wham asked in a joking tone, always ready to prod his brother with some humor. But upon looking into his eyes, he knew something big had happened. "Shit, this is serious, isn't it?" Wescal nodded, slowly getting his breathing under control as he applied his breathing exercises. A few seconds later appeared Winona Staples, his mother. She was the same height as his father, and her hair was shoulder-length, brown like dying leaves, and her eyes as pure as the syrup the Velter trees produced. Much like his father, her age was starting to show. No gray hairs yet, but the wrinkles were there. She also had a sturdier build, especially compared to his father's, but she wasn't fat by any means, always keeping a healthy physique, though that had more to do with her medical condition. "Wescal, why were you yelling and why are you home so early?" Winona asked in a mellow, soft tone. "What's this about something important you have to tell us?" Wescal closed his eyes and controlled his breathing. He was still panting lightly, but now he could speak without choking on his own spit. "War, Mom! The Guild recalled everyone and canceled activities for 3 whole days. There's a lot of confusion spreading across the city and the planet." "War?" Wirt mumbled, frowning. "Who are we at war with, Wescal?" "Ourselves," Wescal spat. "Duke Draymore of Camreem tried to do a coup during the prince's ascension." At that, his father and brother gasped while his mother covered her mouth with both hands. I don't know what's true or not, but everyone was saying that the prince escaped and is somewhere out there gathering loyalist forces. But that's not the worst part. The Third Fleet is loyal to the Duke." "Wyatt is in danger?" Wham asked, his voice barely a whisper. What happened to Wyatt, Wes?" "I don't know," Wescal replied, shaking his head. "News have been spreading across all territories, mostly at random. A lot of nobles are angry and are demanding answers from the Orontes. My guess is that the Guimores already knew about the Duke's treason." "That explains the odd movements lately," Wirt said, taking a seat next to his second son. Wham and his wife followed suit, still processing what Wescal had told them. "Late shipments, the random inspections. I thought those issues were caused by pirates." Wirt ran his right hand across his face, pinching the bridge of his nose briefly. "Not this. Never this." "Wescal, what else do you know? Is this a dispute among the nobles?" "Apparently so, though I'm not sure. Some say this is a matter for the nobles to solve. Others are chanting doomsday and that another civil war may be over us. And others say it has already begun. I don't know who is right," Wescal replied. "My poor boy," Winona muttered, eyes watering as she turned to a frame holding Wyatt's photo before he enlisted in the Royal Navy Academy. "Wirt, we have to know if our son is alive." "He was stationed in the lingering systems as a compost hauler. I doubt he even knows about this if news are reaching us only now." "You know Wyatt, Winona. If the dead man's fleet sided with Duke Draymore, then he is likely to forsake his post. Our son is loyal to the Principality," Wirt said, his voice a mixture of pride and worry. "Wyatt won't die for something he doesn't believe in." "Doesn't matter if a noble or whatever orders him to fight. He'll have to obey," Wescal added with perceptible cynicism. "He could run away like Dad said, Wes," Wham proposed. "This is why I begged you to stop him, Wirt," Winona cried out, tears threatening to fall. "Our boy has gone through too much already. Now he's up there, risking his life for no merit whatsoever. I'd rather have a breathing coward for a son than a notice telling me my oldest is dead and gone forever." Wirt and his sons couldn't argue against her and remained silent for several long moments. "What does this mean for us, though?" Wham asked nervously. "Are we going to fight?" "We first need to know what kind of war we're dealing with," Wirt replied. "If this is a matter of nobility, then we have little to worry about other than suffering from shortages of certain goods. If not, then many will be conscripted to fight or we'll see bombardments and occupation forces soon enough." He stopped to think and take a deep, calming breath. "All that is irrelevant unless we know the side house Guimore took. Loyal, traitor, or neutral." Everyone fell silent, even as Winona tried her best to wipe away the tears now streaking down her cheeks. As commoners, they knew they had no say in the decisions the noble houses above them would take. Sure, if enough of them protested against a singular topic they could be heard, but on matters that involved the ruling of the principality itself, they were powerless to object or voice their opinions. 2 minutes of uncomfortable silence passed in the blink of an eye until an alarm got their attention, and they turned their attention to the singular video screen that adorned the living room. They didn't use it often, and it was there mostly to receive announcements, general broadcasts, and messages. For a split second, their hearts skipped a beat, fearing the worst. It wasn't until Wescal read the description displayed that he stood up in a hurry, a smile spreading across his face. "Video transmission from Wyatt Staples. Accept or decline." the synthetic voice asked as the pinging alarm continued to ring. Accept, you blasted machine, Wescal cried out, tossing his hat to the side and setting his long rifle on the ground. There was a moment of pure darkness on the screen before a set of dots appeared, one illuminating after the other until all 8 dots were shining white. Then Wyatt Staples appeared on screen, his nervous expression changing to one of pure elation when he saw his whole family was present. Wyatt! Wham and Wescal cried out at the same time, relieved to see their big brother safe and sound. Wescal, Wham! Wyatt replied, smiling. Mom, Dad, you're all there? I thought you'd be out hunting, Wes, he asked, worry slowly replacing his happiness. Was out. Got here as fast as I could when we got the news about the coup, Wyatt. It's good to see you're alive, Wescal answered, suddenly feeling teary-eyed, but he held his emotions back. So you know about Duke Draymore's betrayal? Wyatt said before focusing his attention on his tearing, sobbing mother. Mom, don't cry. I'm fine, really. Winona shook her head slowly, smiling. I'm relieved to see my baby boy is alive. We haven't heard from you in almost a year, dear. Can't a mother worry for her children's safety? Putting that aside, Wyatt, we're all happy to see you again, son, Wirt interjected, beaming at his son. And I'm happy to see you all healthy and well, Dad, Wyatt replied, a genuine smile spreading across his lips. Hey, Wyatt, not to damper the mood or anything, but, can you afford a video call? Wham asked, now that the immediate fervor of bubbling emotions was settling down. Wyatt winced slightly at that, but nodded. Not to worry, I can easily afford it, he replied, choking a bit on the easily part. I'll be sending you a large sum of money directly to your account, Dad. Oh, son, don't be ridiculous. Seeing you alive and well is more than enough to calm our hearts, Wirt replied, smiling at his son. Save your credits. We make enough as it is. Trust me, Dad. It won't be a problem, Wyatt explained cryptically. Just humor me, okay? Put your data chit on the screen and I'll make the transference. Very well, son. If you insist, I won't object. But you must tell us how you were to get your hands on enough credits to not only afford a video call, but also send some of it to us, Wirt said, standing up and going to the screen. He produced a credit chit from his left pocket and connected it. There, ready. Wyatt made a few clicking noises, and a few seconds later he sighed tiredly, but was also relieved. During the process, Wescal looked at his brother closer and noticed some oddities. For once, he seemed to be sitting on what appeared to be a private booth. Second, he was clean, more than usual, especially for a compost hauler. He also seemed more muscular than he'd ever remembered his brother being. Finally, he noticed his uniform and his eyes widened. What the fuck? Wescal exclaimed, gaining the attention of his entire family. Wyatt, why the fuck are you wearing an officer's uniform? Just as quickly, all eyes turned to Wyatt to confirm Wescal's exclamation. It only took them a few seconds to realize that it was true. Wirt Staples took a step back as a gasp escaped his throat, and his legs trembled when he noticed the rank insignia on his son's uniform. Wyatt! You're a lieutenant? Wirt exclaimed, his voice raspy and incredulous. How did that happen? You're a commoner. Wyatt's cheeks burned and he scratched the back of his head, looking decidedly uncomfortable. It's a long story, everyone. Over a month ago, I happened to come across the royal yacht and more or less ensured the survival of the vessel and its occupants. I met the prince himself. He paused as his whole family went agape, but continued after a few seconds of stunned silence. The prince rewarded me by making me a lieutenant, and I joined his forces. I've been a part of his fleet ever since. But the prince! You met the prince and he rewarded you with such an honor? It was Winona Staples who made her voice known first. Does that mean you're fighting for His Majesty's right to rule? Wyatt nodded sheepishly. I am, Mom. Guess that means you're not part of the Third Fleet anymore, Wham said, still shaken by the revelation. Had I not encountered the royal yacht and learned about the coup elsewhere, I would have deserted my post. Consequences be damned. I am no traitor, Wyatt said in a reassuring tone. You better have, Wyatt. I like you a lot more alive than dead, Wescal commented, causing his brother and father to share a short-lived chuckle. So where are you now? I don't think you're anywhere near Caiston territory. Wyatt nodded as he took a deep breath. I can tell you where I am, Wes, but I can't tell you much. I was allowed to contact you and let you know I'm alive and not much else. What I can tell you is that I'm currently on the planet Matcha, capital of House Finnegan, he said, as an apologetic smile formed on his lips. Dad, mind checking your balance? Wham ran off, and his footsteps resonated throughout their home for several moments until he came back holding an old but functioning data pad. Handing it over to his father, the older man connected his data chit to it and accessed his account to check his balance. His eyes went wide once more and he collapsed, only avoiding hitting the ground when Wham caught him. Fa! 400,000 credits? Wirt exclaimed, causing his youngest son to let go of him, also in shock. His wife was flabbergasted, and Wescal sputtered on his own saliva after hearing the amount delivered. Wyatt nodded. It is the amount I was advised to send you. I wanted to send you more, but I won't take any risks. That should cover anything you may need for a time and pay for Mom's treatment in full. Send more, Wescal muttered, feeling lightheaded. He had gone from dread and fearing he might have lost his older brother to being relieved, and was now being bombarded by shocking revelation after shocking revelation. Shaking his head, he slapped himself hard enough to make him groan in pain. Definitely not dreaming, he hissed and focused his attention on Wyatt. Why do you have so much money? Who did you kill? Wyatt's expression turned somber for a moment, then shifted to murderous glee before setting into his usual calm, measured expression. I can't tell you the specifics, but I have a lot more credits with me now, and that's not all. The credits were a reward for services rendered, and I'm... Wyatt, hurry up! We have to practice one last time before tomorrow's procession. A melodious, sweet voice called, unseen on the screen, but Wyatt turned to his right and nodded. I'll be out in a minute, Cynthia. I just need to say goodbye. Wham, blushing but with a shit-eating grin spreading across his face, laughed. The revelation of his brother's wealth pushed in favor of doing some sibling mischief. Wyatt! I thought you were too much of a Clixel chick to ask any lady out. Who is she, your girlfriend Tildy? Come on, bro, don't be shy. Introduce her to us. Shut up, Wham, Wyatt countered, cheeks blushing brightly. She's my superior and my friend, all right? Have some respect, honestly, he said with a final huff. Then he smiled sincerely. It's good to see you all again. I don't know when I'll be able to call you again, but for now, stay safe, okay? House Gimor declared itself neutral, so you can rest easy. The prince and his sister Clara are doing everything within their power to avoid turning this conflict into a civil war. A good measure of relief washed over all of them after hearing Wyatt's words. Then Wyatt leaned forth, his voice hushed. I have to go now, everyone. I love you. Oh, and please don't tell Mr. Warlow or anyone else that I'm a blue blood now. Excuse me, what? Wescal asked immediately, bewildered. You're a blue blood? To be specific, the prince ennobled me to the rank of Knight Banneret. That's all I'm allowed to tell you. I'll call again once I get the chance, Wyatt said, and a second later, the call ended. Oh, Wirt mumbled, blinked twice in surprise, and then fainted where he sat. Wyatt! Noble! Knight Banna! Wham started, but fainted, joining his father's side a moment later. Wescal stared at the screen for several seconds, then leaned back on the couch, resting against it. Did Wyatt say he made a friend? He asked, before he too fainted, joining his brother and father. Only Winona Staples remained conscious, her shock slowly being replaced by a beaming expression of pure joy and pride. Stay safe, Wyatt, she said, her worries vanquished for the foreseeable future. She would have to make sure to keep Wyatt's new position in life a secret, despite how much she wanted to yell to everyone who would listen that her oldest son had been recognized by the prince himself. Who could blame her? Her son had achieved something that was beyond the dreams and imagination of most people, commoners and nobles alike. She stood up and made her way to the kitchen to prepare herbal teas with bread and goonie. She knew her husband and son's tendency to faint when overwhelmed, always ready to tend to them whenever it happened. Her smile widened, and a soft chuckle echoed in her throat as she wondered how many times her oldest had fainted so far.
Camrim, capital world of House Draymore. Alone in his office, Duke Cornelius Draymore went through several reports and other plethora of official papers that had occupied him for the majority of his day. As he read through a report detailing a recent logistical issue, he felt his mind divided between paying attention and lamenting that his son Gabriel was as staunch in his belief as ever. "How I wish you could be at my side, Gabriel," he muttered softly before signing the paper and placing it on a much smaller pile to his right. Suddenly he froze as an internal request for an audience came through from Veronica. A thought later he gave his permission, and the doors opened while he took a professional stance behind his desk. In came his beautiful daughter, Veronica Draymore, a source of both pride and sorrow in his heart. She closed the door behind her, sealing them once more, and walked up to his desk before dropping to knee in full reverence. Cornelius resisted the urge to roll his eyes at her display and merely raised a hand in dismissal. "Veronica, you need not kneel nor bow before me. You're my precious daughter." Veronica shook her head, her blonde, braided hair swaying weakly. "I may be your daughter, Lord Father, but I am but your humble hammer. I pay my respects as it is intended and right," she replied with unquestionable conviction. "If that will make you happy," the Duke said, signaling her to stand up. Of course she obeyed instantly. "What troubles you, Veronica?" "My Lord Father, I come to inform you that House Ively is no more. The ruinous traitors conspired against your just rulership and planned to defect. I made sure that the heads of these traitors were departed from their ungrateful shoulders, their entire bloodline destroyed and laid to waste," Veronica stated, beaming with pride. Cornelius narrowed his eyes, quickly accessing the network in the database to find who belonged to House Ively and its history. A fairly powerful house that focused its reputation and power on commerce, construction, and the production of basic consumer goods. Lackluster military achievements, loyal and diligent. At first glance, he failed to see why or how they could be traitors. "I trust that you have sufficient condemning evidence?" he asked, his voice somber and heavy. Veronica proudly retrieved a data chit from within the safe compartments of her armor and placed it on her father's desk with as much reverence as she could manage. The behemoth of a man took the chit and connected it to his desk terminal. He connected to it and quickly absorbed the information in it, reading through it and analyzing it. The proof was substantial. He could grant that to his daughter. House Ively was found performing suspicious movements within their territory. Many shipments and small vessels were gathering in the system called GUI, bordering Taigan territory, in what appeared to be an upcoming massive expedition. Not only that, but there was substantial evidence that House Ively was loyal to House Astor, not House Draymore. There were several confessions from captured family members who admitted to their treachery and had tried to instigate a major revolt across their territories in opposition to his claim as Lord Regent. Disconnecting from the network, Cornelius felt relief that his daughter had not acted purely on impulse alone. He had the suspicion that Felicity Centaur or Hadrian Taigan had a hand in the investigation. Veronica simply delivered the finishing merciless blow. Looking at her waiting daughter, he could see the devotion she bestowed upon him reflected in her green emerald eyes. "I must not stroke the flames of her ego too much, but I can't let her go unpraised for her deeds either," Cornelius thought, as the difficult decision was placed before him. "You've done me a great service, Veronica. You honor the hammer of Draymore with your just and measured vigilance," he praised, gifting her a fatherly smile. Veronica smiled proudly, almost shaking in happiness as she hit her chest with a fist and bowed her head ever so slightly. "Thank you, Lord Father. No treacherous fool shall stand in your way. You shall be recognized as Lord Regent, and then as the true prince the principality deserves, as it is your right." "Your faith and loyalty in our cause is inspiring, my daughter," Cornelius said, standing up. He then walked around his desk until he reached his daughter, embracing her gently. Veronica melted into the embrace, hugging him tightly. They hugged for several long, silent seconds until he spoke up. "I'm sorry, Veronica. I should have been a better father." "You are the best father in the entire principality, Dad," Veronica replied, her voice soft and tender, unlike her usual heavy and fervent tone. "Mom would stand at your side if she were to live." "Curious. Our son believes that you would spit on my grave while our daughter thinks you'd stand at my side. I know better, my Jasmine. You would be here for them, not me. Not in this situation. Not like this," Cornelius thought to himself before caressing his daughter's hair. I failed you as a father, Veronica. I failed you both. This is all I can do to compensate for it. Will you stand at my side? Veronica broke the embrace and gave her father a reassuring nod. Always, my lord father. Whatever your will is, I will carry it, no matter the consequences. And that is what I fear the most, Cornelius thought, shame filling his heart. Just then the doors unsealed and Veronica was quick to act. She turned in a blur of motion, drawing her blade and activating it alongside her armor, ready to face any enemy that may come through that door. Instead, one of his many aides entered the room in a hurry. You dare enter the same room that your Lord Regent is occupying without prior notice or warning? Veronica half-shouted, demanding an explanation. The aide fell to his knees a few meters in front of her. I am so terribly sorry, my Lord Regent, my Lady Veronica, but I acted upon your orders, my liege, he said, excusing himself before presenting a simple blue ribbon with a white dot at each end. Cornelius understood immediately and placed a hand on her daughter's shoulder, calming her down. Stand down, Veronica. He means us no danger and has carried my orders to the letter. I've been expecting this response for several days now. Veronica glared at the aide one last time before deactivating her armor and sword, sheathing it, and glancing at her father. I was not aware of such orders, Lord Father. There are dealings only concern my attention, Veronica. Do you understand? He asked. Predictably, Veronica nodded. Of course, my Lord Father. If it doesn't concern me, then that is your decision and I abide by it. What may I do for you now, my Lord Father? Return to your duties, Veronica. But next time contact me before deciding the fate of an entire house. Only I shall decide their ultimate fate, Cornelius said, as he took the ribbon from his aide, dismissing him with a wave of his hand. The aide was more than happy to obey as he rushed out of the office. Of course, Lord Father, I shall carry your orders, Veronica replied, giving her father a salute before leaving his office. Once the doors were closed and sealed, Cornelius returned to his seat and cleared his throat. Alpha Protocol, Starman, enabled. Authentication code, LGNK017BNH, codename INTI. As the final words escaped his lips, the entire room resonated as an energy field distorted the air and molecules in it, creating a true zone of silence outside the confined bubble around the Duke. His desk terminal glitched to life, sending out multiple errors and a scrambling static until the screen settled on a blue background with a singular white dot in the middle. Duke Cornelius, a synthetic voice spoke. Greetings, the Duke replied, his voice vibrating uncomfortably but nothing he couldn't endure. Is there anything I can help you with?
We should be asking that question, Cornelius. We may not have many eyes and ears in the Principality, but we are neither blind nor deaf, or mute for that matter. Our time is limited. Will you succeed?
The voice asked in a serious tone. We knew that a clean victory was unlikely, Cornelius replied nonchalantly. I have the upper hand, the numbers, the ships, and the forces necessary to uphold and honor our deal.
That's not an answer.
Cornelius closed his eyes for a moment before his expression turned stood and firm.
Your contributions have been most useful, though some of my subjects fail to see their true potential. I've lost over 50 ships already, most of them being Corvus frigates. A substantial loss, but not entirely outside our expectations. We can't send you more ships, Cornelius. You'll have to manage with the resources at your disposal. One way or another, you must be recognized as the legitimate Lord Regent, be it through guile, ruthlessness, or bloodshed, we care not. Do not fail in your task, Cornelius. The future of the Principality is within your hands.
The voice said as the screen began to distort again.
We'll be watching and waiting for your results, Cornelius.
A second later, the screen went black. Disengage Alpha Protocol, Starman, he said, and the uncomfortable bubble around him disappeared in an instant. Cornelius closed his eyes, took in a deep breath, and resumed his work. He had much more to do.